But the whole thing was sketchy. It's sketchy with the pilots.
Just above the snow!
Super sketchy. Super with the helicopter itself that's about 300 years old. Sketchy with the landing spot. We didn't even know where we were landing. And then sketchy with how far it's going to deepen. The whole thing just shouted danger. So one thing on my shows over the year I've had to do a lot of is jumping out of stuff. You know, whether we're jumping into the episode at the start or we've come across a cliff and we're trying to negotiate our way, it's always kind of leaping off stuff. And I love it. You know, it's what I've done since I was a little boy, and I hope to be doing it, God willing, knees permitting, late into my life. But if I had to pick the 5 kind of iconic jumps I've done, I would say they are these. Number 1, dropping out of a biplane with a parachute, by the biplane inverting and then me dropping out. And the pilot was quite a crazy guy, and he said, I'll be fine. I said, any kind of safety for takeoff, or you know, does anyone do seat belts or anything like that? I go, no, don't worry about that. And we got to altitude, and I just tied a little sling onto the, you know, this strut. So I thought, as it inverts, I can then hang on and check we're clear of the, you know, I'm okay, and then I'll drop off. And it was just a cool moment. I remember going weightless, that plane turning upside down, hanging off it, and then going, and that huge expanse of the desert underneath me. And just thinking, this is a pretty fun thing to do. And a reminder of how lucky I am in my job that we get to kind of push the boundaries and do a lot of these crazy things under the great umbrella of survival and adventure.
And this is just going to be a case of dodge the cacti!
But also, I'd add to that, also having fun. Definitely an iconic one for me was the Halo high altitude skydive entrance we did to the, I think it was the Nevada desert. Halo jumps stand for high altitude, low opening. It was something we used to do a lot of because you can jump from very high, you're pulling your parachute low, and you're on the ground very fast.
Okay, let's go.
You know, you can almost see that curvature of the earth, and it very much feels like you're in a commercial plane at that sort of height, where you are at that sort of height, rather than in a sort of skydiving plane that's obviously much lower. And you can be in free fall for like a minute, and still the earth isn't looking any closer. And that's a pretty cool feeling. But the thing to remember is it is very, very cold up there. So we took off from the desert and it was super hot, but we're wrapped up in all of this gear and on oxygen, because we know by the time you jump, you know, up at 30,000 feet or whatever height we did that particular Halo one at, it's going to be like minus a lot. It's always the extremes of temperature that make those sort of things maybe not as fun as you might imagine. And actually, I've learned the most fun jumps are just with good buddies in t-shirts and shorts. By the time it all gets more serious and you've got oxygen and all this gear and you're sweating, you're cold, the truth is the kind of fun goes a little bit out of it, but still up here.
Wow, that's amazing.
Number 3, I would say, was out of a chopper in Siberia, and it was about minus 45, a massive, big Russian MI whatever chopper. There was a lot of health and safety going on in those days, and it was kind of like the pilot could get us there, but it was windy. And the plan was to jump into this cornice of soft snow, but the truth is we didn't know what I was jumping into, whether it was going to be hard or soft. And I also knew that if I missed this cornice, I'm in trouble. And there was definitely a lot of nerves, but I like to think we nailed it. Definitely a few bruises and scrapes, but we lived to fight another day. But I will never forget being in that doorway, and the pilot, who was smoking at the time, leaning over and going, oh! And it was like, hold on, you're hardly even control, you don't even know where we are. You know, I looked down, I thought it was about 20 feet, probably as good as I'm gonna get. I'm out of here. Number 4, I would say, probably jumping out of the New Zealand Air Force C-130 plane for one of our adventures. Super low level. We were flying through the mountains of the South Island, huge C-130, and it's an amazing sort of sight. You know, seeing it pass low through the mountains is huge, and traveling slow.
Just spectacular, isn't it?
And it's one of those super cool planes where the ramp goes down and, you know, you just run off it and go. I've jumped a few times off these sort of ramp exits, and normally you're at really high altitude and it feels like you're above the kind of world and above the clouds. But this, suddenly the ramp opened, I was kind of ready for that, but instead I could see mountains above us, and we were low in the valley at just, you know, a few thousand feet most, and it's like, you've got to get this right, you've got to get out, get stable and pull fast. But the New Zealand Air Force were super cool to work with, and big smile, big thumbs up, that red on, green, and go. So thanks to the New Zealand Air Force for all of your help with that jump. I would say one of the lesser known ones for me to finish this off with would be riding a snowmobile out the back of a big Russian Mi, helicopter in the... God, where were we? Where were we for that? Can you remember that? Dear, so bad the way you forget these things. Eastern European, right on the Russian border. Yeah, Georgia. Georgia, and what are the mountains? The Georgian mountains. Anyway, we're in the mountains of Georgia. Caucasus Mountains, that's it. Yeah, there you go. The one thing in our world you're always nervous of with helicopters is tail rotors. So the whole concept of landing a helicopter opened at the back, these big kind of doors, and the plan was to drive it out, but without then getting away, banking hard right as soon as it's out, so you miss the tail rotor. But as soon as I came out, it was just white out of snow, very hard to kind of work out what direction. It was like gun it and go and just hope you're not going to hit this tail rotor. But the whole thing was sketchy, to be honest. It's sketchy with the pilots, super sketchy. Super with the helicopter itself that's about 300 years old. Sketchy with the landing spot, we didn't even know where we were landing, and then sketchy with how far it's going to deepen, whether the tail rotor is even going to be out of the snow, let alone this whole thing and hitting the tail rotor. The whole thing just shouted danger. But we tried to minimize the risk as much as we could. We made a few plans, we talked it through, but ultimately we had to do it. And it was one of those times I was very relieved to see the helicopter leave, and we survived it. So there you go, my top 5 jumps over the years. The truth is, this list could be top 50 easily. But those are the ones that stand out, maybe the ones you might not think of straight off the top of your head. Have a great day, never give up.